Start with high school.
I'm sure a lot of people watching the movie Sigourney are like, she's a movie star. She must have just had like a glorious school experience. She must have been the queen of everything.
Can you imagine how wrong people can be? I don't think anyone felt like that. Very, very few people. The occasional high school queen who then still looks back at it now at 55 going, those were the good old days. So perhaps it's good to be a late bloomer. I was definitely a late bloomer. I was this tall when I was 11. I was horribly self-conscious. By the end of high school, I could pass as a normal human being. But it's taken me, every decade I go, am I done yet? Am I ready? Am I ready for prime time? Finally at 60, I feel like, you know what? It's fine. Whatever I am, it's what I am.
And you, Jamie Lee?
You know what? I was a middle of the road person. I wasn't, high school was not a pleasant time for me, but I wasn't on either end of the spectrum. I was just sort of floating in the middle of the sea, which was fine.
But in your case, was celebrity an issue for you in high school?
A little bit, but not too much. I mean, the celebrity attraction has really just been kicked into overdrive in this sort of modern media generation. It was a factor, but it wasn't a giant factor. I mean, the legacy followed me around, but I've had that for my whole life. That wasn't a big issue. High school, just in the sense of your development as a person, was tricky. And it is tricky for everybody, and there's not, I guarantee you had some hard times, and you probably had a couple good times. And it is a universal theme. It's certainly something that we can all relate to, and which is why I think people like the movie.
Yeah.
Is people seem to now go back to high school and remember fondly or, horribly their experience.
Well, speaking of universal themes, I mean, I think especially when we look at it through the lens of our movies, U.S. high school is somewhat of an American experience. Do you think what your characters are going through is something that everybody around the world is going to be able to relate to?
I do, although I do feel it's a good point you make about it being sort of an American phenomenon, that a lot of kids around the world are very much busier with their studies. And here there's a lot of emphasis on social life.
Social, yes.
Which
that's
thankfully
a great
I
point.
missed because I was at an all-girls school.
Well,
so.
thankfully you missed because you were also incredibly smart and doing a lot of academic work, whereas most of us were taking Quaaludes and, dancing to Steely Dan. So, that's true.
Can you dance to Steely Dan?
Oh,
I think Steely Dan was later.
It was
You must
later.
be
It was
much
actually, I was
younger than I am.
19 when Steely Dan was around. So anyway, whoever.
I was the Beatles, Beatles and the Stones and the
yeah,
Rascals
so
and the
intellectual.
Animals and the Zombies. They were
Very
great.
intellectual musical choices. Ms. Weaver, Susie Weaver.
Well, let's get away from social issues and talk about cast a little bit.
Okay.
Yes.
You each got paired up with wonderful daughters.
Yes.
Yes.
Was there some off-camera mother-daughter bonding going on? Any shopping? Any time for anything?
Oh, what a nice idea. I don't know. I didn't do that. Well, first of all, Kristen and Odette don't need mothering. They
Yeah.
are awesome.
They are
fully,
on fire.
They are just ready for anything. And I was filled with admiration by the way they conducted their relationship, because Kristen, who, has a bigger, kind of a flashier part, went out of her way, I think, to reach out to Odette right away and say, we're going to be the best of friends on this. Because Odette's part is hard. She has to be really mean.
Yeah.
And they made sure that it was all based on love, which is wonderful, instead of on anything,
Kristen is an extraordinary
she
person.
is. She
Very,
is.
I mean, on par intellectually with this one. I'm being straight.
An imbecile is what she means.
No. Both of them are incredibly intelligent people, and Kristen has impressed me so many times with her choices.
Me too.
But then you also have this icon. You've got Betty White, who at her age, her career was like going through the roof.
Yeah.
And so that must have been fun to have Betty around.
It was, the best thing in the world. I mean, she's such an anchor for the cast. She has this tremendous twinkle power and is so generous and so gracious. And
she schools all the young people
Yeah.
because, nowadays you hear about people going back to their trailers and, it's just this whole sort of crap about being a young actor and the demands that they all make and blah, blah, blah. You just want to vomit. And this woman shows up and sits on set and doesn't leave until they tell her to go home. They break for lunch, she'll go have some lunch, but she's not, she gets made up and sits there. Doesn't do anything. Isn't like she makes pottery. She just sits there.
She's available for
She's
any conversation.
available for any conversation, and she is ready to do the work. She's really just there to do the work.
Talk to me about working with Andy. He has an energy. He really has an energy.
He's a showman. He had us all call him hair director, and he had a riding crop, and he strode around. I've never worked with anyone like Andy. He brings such a theatrical flourish to everything. He has us all out there dancing and performing and improvising. I mean, he has made this movie as joyous and full as it is, I think.
I think he is just frustrated and really would rather be an actor and just hasn't figured out how to do that yet. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's sort of, I really do feel like he could do it better than any of us. Maybe not Betty White, but I mean, I really do feel like it must be very frustrating for him because he seems like someone who really wants to perform and obviously performs all day long, but you kind of wonder what would happen if he, some great directors have become, Sidney Pollack was a fantastic actor.
Absolutely.
Now maybe he started as an actor, became a director. And Andy, I would love to cast Andy in something and actually work with him and develop his performing skills because there's something else going on. I think he wants to perform. So maybe all of a sudden he'll be an actor.
I'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe we'll come back in someday and it'll be all
Exactly, it'll be
changed
Andy
around.
sitting
You'll
here.
be directing Andy.
I don't know.